Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the day of the International Domestic Workers Day. You'll all be wondering, what is this exclusively Domestic Workers Day? Uh, there is a day which which is exclusively there to celebrate the Domestic Workers Day. Uh, and you all know who's domestic workers because you're all very intimately connected to them on everyday basis, who are part of your life, who come to your houses to clean and make your life more easier, make you to go to work. So with that, we will what we are going to do to celebrate this day is also to talk about their own struggle and their own rights. Okay, so what we are going to do is we have a very distinguished panel here. We have Geeta Menon from Sri Jagrati Samiti and Usha from Ferina, who's from who altogether both of them put together have around nearly more than a decade, 2 decades of work with domestic workers. Yeah. So and we have here Balamurli here, one of my co-researcher, uh, who's also joining, and we have Roshni, my research assistant. So this is also part of our research on domestic workers, and who were part of this, who was Fedina and Sri Jagrati Samiti and the Domestic Workers' Rights Union and the Manegalasa union with us. So they were all part of our research, and this research is mostly to put across to everyone the struggle of domestic workers to actually consider them as workers. Okay, so to start off this session, a few instructions. What we'll do is that we will have some kind of a poll which will be coming in between. So you need to poll so that depending on the poll that the panelist will send their comments and reply. And we'll also have a lot of in between, a lot of uh, what do you say, domestic workers talking about their struggles. Okay, so with this, let us start off with the first poll here, because the first poll is about the Domestic Workers Day. Okay, so I just want to know, because this is all very new to you all guys, of Domestic Workers Day. So the poll is just asking you, how many of you know this event before you came to this webinar? Okay, so the poll is on. So you guys can vote to know how many of you actually knew about the Domestic Workers Day. So we have around 72 people now voted. So we'll just wait for 2 minutes, and we have 78 people. So I think we are 101 people on board. So if you guys can quickly vote, it'll be great, right? It's just a thing, right? Unless if 100 vote, then we will go ahead and I will let you know what's the vote like. Right? So this is a voting. So you just can vote.
Rajesh, I think it's enough.
Yeah, it's enough. Okay. So I'm just going to tell you what is the results of the poll. So here is it. 77% of the people, uh, uh, 77% of the people actually didn't know what was Domestic Workers' Day, and it's only 23% who actually knew what was the Domestic Workers' Day all about. So to take this forward, I'll invite Geeta Menon to talk about this Domestic Workers' Day, because though it's a very short history, when the ILO had this Convention 189, but there was a lot of struggle from the Domestic Workers Union and from across the world to make this day as Domestic Workers Day. So to give you a sense of the struggle, I invite Geeta Menon to just to give in her sentence, because she was also part of this struggle, to talk about what was this, how this day came about. So Geeta, can you uh, take it forward?
So just one second. Geeta, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Yes. Technical things. I'm not very. So, thank you, Rajesh, and thank you. This is a very unusual audience, and it's a very good thing that has happened, because these young minds and youngsters and students, and from this poll, it shows very clearly that how little we know about the person who's so close to us. I mean, people who come into our houses every day, people who help us, who enable us, who allow us to go for work and look after our lifestyle, if I may say so. And we know very little about them. And therefore, we know very little about their day, because we look at them as, we don't even look at them. We don't even consider them as as a part of our life and part of our family. I just like to say very briefly, because Rajesh will intervene very soon. So very briefly, that the journey of the domestic work and the fact that we have an International Domestic Workers' Day is a historic thing. It's an historic thing because historically, domestic workers have not been treated as, not been called workers. They have emerged from servitude, they have emerged from bonded labor, they have emerged from slave-like conditions which were existing in the olden days. And it is in the new economy, it is in the economy of urbanization, it is in the economy of joint family breaking down, in the economy of both husband and wife going to work, and therefore they need support systems, and that is where the domestic worker comes in. And the domestic worker, having come in into the employment-employee relationship that is there, employer-employee relationship, into a wage economy, she has come into that, but yet the relationship is still feudal, the relationship between employer and employee. And it is very well seen in all our work, and in the recent advertisement that came about, it is shown how even in the pandemic or during the pandemic, the attitude of the domestic, of the employers has not changed. The attitude has not been that of, different from that of slavery, and therefore it has not been an attitude of equality or worker, worker status. There was an ad that very recently showed up what exactly this attitude is. You all must have seen the Kentaro ad, which says very clearly how the hands of the domestic worker make the dough brown, and therefore it is very unhygienic to employ her, and therefore you should buy a machine which will knead your dough. This is capitalism at its height. So you have this situation where the servant attitude, or the fact that the worker is not center in our lives, the worker who works in our home, in the privacy of our home. So that's why this day is very important. And therefore, the history of this day has been that struggles have gone on for very long to change this nomenclature from servant to worker. Struggles have gone on for very long to get the worker registered as a worker. Till today, till as of recent years, the domestic worker did not find a place in the unorganized sector hierarchy. The Labor Department, the employers, there's no registration of the domestic workers as workers. So therefore, internationally, there has been a lot of movements and there has been a lot of force, because, you know, at an international level, it is a different kind of employment as domestic workers, as housekeepers. While India, with its caste system, has this employment of domestic workers as a service category, as lowest in the hierarchy of work. So abroad, outside India, and other movements that were led in India too, brought about this whole struggle to have the International Labour Organization give us a place in the world of work. And in the world of work, because the majority of domestic workers are women, and therefore much more vulnerability, much more intersectionality of caste, class, and religion, caste, class, and genders there. Besides that, the kind of gender notion of housework that exists also makes us separate from the other workers, other world of work. So therefore, this whole combination of factors led to a struggle from most of the countries abroad, and addressing the ILO and the ILO General Assembly to make a convention. In the struggle to that, I mean, lots of petitions, lots of movements, lots of declarations before that. But then in the movement towards that, it was known very clearly that India objected a lot in the General Assembly. We didn't have the Indian government very proactive towards this. And there were also senior, the ILO is made as a tripartite body. So in this tripartite body, the employers and the bureaucrats didn't have a very favorable position towards the domestic workers. They did not think about it as important. But it was a struggle that led to finally 2011, the convention being passed, C-189, which talks about decent work is domestic work, and therefore brings in the word which is very important for a domestic worker's dignity, that is decent. That this work is decent, this work is productive, this work has to be recognized as a within a legislative framework. So the ILO convention basically has to be ratified now. 23 countries around the world have ratified it since 2011. The government of India has not thought it important to ratify this convention. And with no ratification of this convention, it makes it much more difficult for domestic workers to have a legislative framework whereby their rights can be protected. So it is very important to understand this and to understand this history, which has not been given to us. We had to struggle for it. We had to fight for it so that domestic workers have a place in this world of work.
That note. So with that note, which I again want to reiterate, that domestic workers have not been recognized as workers because most probably they are kind of invisible to our own eyes, even if they come to work in our own houses, because we don't consider them as workers. And at these times of pandemic, we should also remember that everybody went through their own set of problems, but domestic workers also went a lot of problems in these times. So what we have is a small video clip of workers themselves talking about their own problems. So we should not forget about these times, though we have another struggle to do after this thing, but we have to keep them in mind what happened in these times. So there's a short video clip. So I'll play for this video clip. I also want to say that if anybody has got any questions to ask, please write in the chat so that we can take those questions after that, right? 1 minute. It's a little technical glitch. I will set it.
ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಪುಷ್ಪ ಅಂತ.
Roshni, can you share the video?
Yes, sure, Rajesh. Give me a second.
Yeah.
ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಮನೇಲಿ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಊಟ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು, ಮನೆ ಹತ್ರ ಇಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ತಿನ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮನೇಲಿ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಒಂದ್ ಮನೇಲಿ ಸುಖವಾಗಿ ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ರು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೂ ಕೊರೋನಾ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೂ ಅಟ್ಯಾಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ನೀವು ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಬೇಡ ಅಂದ್ರು. ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮನೇಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದಿವಸ ಕಾರಲ್ಲಿ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ರು, ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದ್ರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಂಬಳ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಏನಿದ್ರು ರೇಷನ್ ಅದು ಏನು ತಂದ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ನಮಗೂ ಸಾಲ ಇದರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಾಲ ಇದೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ ನಮಗೂ ಈ ಕೊರೋನಾನಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಆ ಸಾಲ ಅವರು 2 ತಿಂಗಳು ನಿಲ್ಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಈ ತಿಂಗಳಿಂದ ಕಟ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕೆಲ್ಸಗಳಿಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಇದೆ ನನಗೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಈಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ.
ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಕಲಾವತಿ, ನಾನು ವಿಜಯಪುರದಿಂದ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ. ವಿಜಯಪುರ ಇಂದ್ರನಗರ ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. 28 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ನಾವು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. 28 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಒಂದ್ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊರೋನಾ ಬರ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕೆಲ್ಸನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸಂಬಳನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಏನ್ ನೀವು ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಡೋದು ನಾವು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಅದರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಊಟಕ್ಕೂ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ನಾವ್ ಹೆಂಗಿರೋದು? ಒಂದ್ ತಲೆನೋವು ಬಂದ್ರೇನು ಒಂದ್ ಮಾತ್ರೆ ತಗೊಳಕ್ಕೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು? ಹಿಂಗ ನಿಮ್ಮಿಂದಾನೇ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತಾರೆ ನೋವು. ನಾವ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಹೋಗೋದು? ನಾವ್ ಹೋಗೋದು ಅದು ಬಸ್ಸಿಂದ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಹೋಗಿ ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಬರಕ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ದೂರ? ನಮ್ಗೆ ಲಾಕ್ಡೌನ್ ಮುಂಚೆ 1ನೇ ತಾರೀಕು ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಸಂಬಳ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಲಾಕ್ಡೌನ್ ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಭಾನುವಾರ ಲಾಕ್ಡೌನ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ನಾನು ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಆವಾಗಿಂದ ಅರ್ಧ ಸಂಬಳ ಕೊಟ್ರು. ಒಂದ್ ಮನೇಲಿ ಪೂರ್ತಿನೇ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ ಮನೇಲಿ ಕೇಳಕ್ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಜಗಳಕ್ ಬಂದ್ರು. ಯಾಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು, ನಾವ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೊಡಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಮೇಡಮ್ ನಾನ್ 4 ಮನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಇವಾಗ 3 ಜನ ಬೇಡ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ರು. ಬರೀ ಆಫೀಸ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾನು ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ, ಅದ್ ಬೇಡ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ರು. ಆಫೀಸ್ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತ್ರ ಕರೀತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ನೀನ್ ಬಂದ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಮ್ಮ ಅಂತ ಬೀಗ ನನ್ ಕೈ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದು ನನ್ಗೆ 3,000 ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಉನ್ನಮ್ಮ ಅಂತ. ನಾನು 25 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಈಗ ಲಾಕ್ಡೌನ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ರಜೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು, 40 ದಿವಸ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು ಅಷ್ಟೇ. 40 ದಿವಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಬಳ ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸಂಬಳ ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಮತ್ತೆ 4ನೇ ತಾರೀಕಿಂದ ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಮೇ 4ನೇ ತಾರೀಕಿಂದ ಕೆಲಸ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಕೆಲಸ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಈಗ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಂದರೆ ಈ ಲಾಕ್ಡೌನಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಸ್ಕ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ಮಾಸ್ಕ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Thank you. So, I just wanted to reiterate apologies for the poor quality of the videos because
ಪುಷ್ಪ ಅಂತ.
it was the domestic workers themselves who actually shot and sent us these videos. So I take a little pause here, and I like both Geeta Menon and Usha from Fedina to comment because they did a short survey of looking at how the domestic workers are coping in this times. So Usha, can you just add on to it, or Geeta, can you add on to it?
Yeah, Rajesh, thanks Rajesh and Roshni for giving this opportunity. See, what I would like to tell about the survey and generally the situation of the domestic workers, before talking about the post-COVID, I would like to briefly mention about before the COVID itself. Domestic workers, there was a lot of biases on domestic workers with regard to caste. They were considered as dirty, and anything lost in the family, they would look at the domestic workers as the person who has taken it. So this was the situation of the domestic workers before the COVID. But after the COVID, the situation has even worsened. The employers don't think that COVID, the virus could be through them also, but they only consider it as the domestic workers who come from a very poor locality, who will be carrying the virus around everywhere, and it's increased. The trauma for the domestic workers have increased, and many of them have lost their jobs. Very few have got their salaries for the month of April. May, they have not got their salaries. So this is the situation of the domestic workers post-COVID.
Geeta? Geeta, you have to unmute yourself.
I'd just like to add a little bit here. Usha has already mentioned the pandemic has done nothing new but except thrown everything of their lives out of control. Whatever control they had little before the COVID, has now, intensified so much that there's tremendous impact, there's tremendous trauma and impact. One is deaths have increased, house rents have to be paid, health is a problem, health is an issue. Living in surroundings like living in houses where there are 5 to 7 people. So anyway, physical distancing is difficult. So all in all, their own lives, coping with their own lives is one big trauma itself. The other side, what has happened is then comes a shock of losing their livelihoods. 87% of the households we surveyed together have rejected them, have said that you don't need to come for work. Some of them are not saying it openly. They're just saying it that you come after 2 months, you come after 3 months. But in between that, there's no assurance as to what they will do. The other 91% have not got their salaries for April. The other shocking factor is that of 50% of those who are aged above 55 years have been categorically told don't come for work. I mean, this is all in the guise of having to protect not their health, but the health of the employers. Now, we are saying that it is not a struggle between you and them. It is a struggle in which we are together. It is a crisis in which we are together, where we have to take care of each other. But that is not what the employers feel. Many employers, of course, have looked after their domestic workers, have given them rations, have helped them out. We are not saying no. But when the survey revealed that it was more than 80% that are really on the roads. And then if you all must know that many of them are single earners for their families. Many of them may not get support from their husbands. Besides that, domestic violence had increased during this period. Plus, domestic workers found it difficult to deal with even this casteist situation, the casteist attitude. So our demands have gone up to the employers as well as to the RWAs, because the RWAs have been playing a very arbitrary role, saying that issuing directives of keeping them away from the apartments and holding the employees responsible in case there's a sickness. Like Usha mentioned, we are treated like the virus ourselves. So the whole issue of caste and the attitude of the employers is adding to the trauma more. So domestic workers today are asking for, from the government especially, wage compensation, that is for the period of loss of wages as well, and also asking from the government for the schemes that have been announced for the other workers in the unorganized sector. But domestic workers have been left out. The other thing is that not that they have rations in the area that is going to supplement them. Even the rations in the area have.
Okay, so I think there's a technical glitch from that end. Hello? Hello? So what I'll do is, as Geeta can come in, what I want you to do is, I'll go to the second part of this webinar. Hello? I'll go to the second part of this webinar. Geeta, I'm just sorry that we'll go ahead. We'll go to the second part of this webinar, actually looking at the three demands of the domestic workers unions in our country. One of the first demands has been of wages. Okay, the government to identify, at least to say that give us a minimum wage. at least to recognize as workers. So what we have is a small poll here about the wage. So I hope you guys, all of you might be students, but also know how much wages your domestic workers have been paid. So there's a small poll here. So we'll again go into a poll and see how much do domestic workers are actually paid. We'll just wait for a minute, and when all of them poll, I can share with you the result. Okay. Okay, so we have 93 people voting, and we will just I'll end the poll with 95 people, and here are the results. I'm just sharing the results. 40% of our audience here say that they pay around 1,000 to 1,400 for a 1 hour of work, and 29% say 500 to 800. Then you have 1,500 to 1,900, 19%, and 2,000 to 2,500, 13% of them say. What we want to tell you is that Karnataka and few of the states are the few states who actually passed a minimum wage act for domestic workers. Okay, there is no other state which have done it. Though we are talking about the new wage, the wage bill, but domestic workers come nowhere in those new wage bills. But what we have is some of the few states like Karnataka, Maharashtra, Assam, West Bengal have actually said what is the minimum wage. The minimum wage actually is for a 1 hour work is around 1,500. Okay, and that is the minimum wage. Now, when we talk about minimum wage, we are talking about the minimum. We are not talking about a living wage. And as young people, as you go to as being professionals, you'll go into a working life and you'll become managers. It is better to keep in mind the living wage rather than the minimum wage. It looks like everybody keeps in mind the minimum wage, but not the living wage. So to comment on this, I invite Usha to comment on this poll and also to talk about their struggle on wages and for the living wage. Usha? Hello?
Usha, please make sure you're unmuted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Usha, you can go ahead.
Yeah, about the wages, what I would like to go back to what Geeta was saying when she started her comment when she was talking about the Domestic Workers Day. The domestic workers didn't have any idea of a worker itself, and then they had no idea of wages. It was 30 years back, only exchange of some food, that to the food that was stale food, the previous day's food, and these were the things that the domestic workers were getting in turn for the labor that they were contributing. And through some organizing work, really the concept of employer-employee relationship, the real terms of wages, all this was introduced. And as Rajesh mentioned, Karnataka was one of the first states which introduced the Minimum Wages Act and brought in minimum wage for the domestic workers, I think sometime in 2004. But what I would like to say is that the minimum wage is really the poverty wage. With the minimum wage, people really cannot lead a decent life. The domestic workers cannot take care of their nutritious food, cannot give a proper education to the children. We did a very informal sort of a session with the domestic workers where we started to discuss with them about what is their minimum needs that they have to do, taking into consideration the consumptions of food, the consumption with regard to clothing, with housing, all that. So when we did that, what we came out at the end of that session was that very basic minimum, no luxuries, nothing. And when we worked out in terms of monetary things, it was somewhere between 25,000 to 30,000 that they need every month. Then we again asked them to do another exercise of cutting down on some things to see what they can cut down to see if they will be able to match up with the minimum wages that the government has announced. So when they did this cutting down, they first did it was on the food, because food is something that they would easily cut down, and leading to loss in the nutrition. The children suffer because of loss in nutrition. And the second was to go for a smaller house where the joint family, people living together, don't have privacy, children don't have space for studying. So this is the second thing that the domestic workers cut down on. With all this cutting down, they arrived at something between 18,000 and 20,000. This is after all the cutting down. And in real towns, if you see domestic workers working in so many houses, I think each of them, if you take a count, they'll be working in 5 or 6 houses and earning maximum 9,000 to 10,000. That's if they work in 6 houses. So that's the gap between what they are earning and what they really need.
Geeta, you want to add something? Geeta? Okay. So, so that is about the living wage. And yeah, do you want to add something, Geeta?
You have to unmute me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I want to add basically this, that Usha has mentioned much of it, but see, a living wage is very important, because right now what they are getting is just a basic wage. And if you know, all the entire working industry, I mean, working classes or the organized workers, you know, with the wage, there is this ESI and PF and other benefits. I mean, other statutory requirements that are there. So when you talk of a domestic workers wage, this is just a benchmark that the government has given, which is far, far low. And also, if you see the consumption patterns, like Usha was saying, when we worked it out, we included all this and worked out a wage, like Usha was saying. I will not go into that. But when we were doing this study, we realized that if 2 people in that house, the domestic worker and a husband, both in the unorganized sector, don't get a living wage, then we have the third person who goes to work is the child. So we have child labor, which can increase potentially if people are not provided with their living wage. The third point is that in the initial stages of the Minimum Wage Act in 2004, it was very, very low. And it was after much amendments and the VDA, dearness allowance being included, that finally they also included cooking. Because one must note that in the first minimum wage notification, they included everything together, like cleaning, washing utensils, taking care of children. I mean, it is absolutely impossible to denote a wage like that for so many different kinds of work. So the domestic workers are themselves now setting standards by saying per task. it should be by task, because the number of tasks that they are made to do is much more than what they start out with. If they are employed for one task, they are made to do 10 tasks when they go inside the house. That's all. Cooking was not
Thank you.
included before. Now, after struggle, cooking has been included in the minimum wage, in the notification.
Yeah, thank you, Geeta. So we also have to be very sure, because as domestic workers work on an hourly basis or a hourly basis, that we should be also calculating per hour basis how much do we really pay our domestic workers. Okay, so that is how we came to that conclusion, that if they're working for nearly an hour, that you need at least to pay around 1,500 per month. Okay, so moving on from domestic wage, from minimum wage, I will go into the third part of the thing about what the domestic workers' rights are, is about leave. Okay, as any worker, which we know that especially if you're in IT, you actually work for a 5-day week. Saturday, Sunday is off. But it's not as such with a lot of informal sector workers. So we have the other poll now, which we'll have, which will about having domestic workers on leave. This is also about your own domestic workers. And I also want to remind that all these poll which we're doing is anonymous. So don't worry that we don't know who's voting what. Okay, so here's the poll on the leave part for your domestic. Yeah. Yes. We have around 75 people voting now. We will we'll close the poll in just a few seconds. Okay. We had 90 people voting the last time, so we have only 83 now voting. Let me wait till 90 so that I can stop the poll and give you a thing. Okay, I'll stop the poll. I think only 86 people want to say how much do they give holiday or not. So I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. So what we have is that we have that 21% actually cut wages for workers who take leave, but 79% don't cut wages for domestic workers taking leave. What we also had is that 53% of employers don't give Sunday off, give Sunday off, but 47% actually don't give Sunday off. So before going into the comments from the panelists, we have a small video to play from the domestic workers themselves, talking about their own struggles of having to get a day off. So Roshni, can you play the video? Roshni?
Yes, Rajat, just a second.
ಮತ್ತೆ ಮದ್ವೆ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ನಿಮ್ಗೇನ್ ರಜಾ ಬೇಕು ಭಾನುವಾರ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮನೇಲಿ ತಾಯಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ವಯಸ್ಸಾದವ್ರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅಣ್ಣ ತಮ್ಮಂದ್ರೆಲ್ಲ ವಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಮನೇಲೇ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಏನು ಯಾವಾಗೂ ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಯಾವಾಗ ಕೆಲಸ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೇಲಿ ಏನು ನೋಡೋದಲ್ವಾ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನಮಗೂ ಒಂದು ರಜೆ ಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಟ್ಟೆ ಒಕ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ವಾರಕ್ಕೊಂದ್ಸಲಿ ಒಕ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ 6 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ 6 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ 7 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಬರ್ತೀವಿ ಕೆಲಸದಿಂದ. ನಮಗೂ ವಾರಕ್ಕೊಂದು ರಜೆ ಬೇಕು.
ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಇವಾಗ ಮಕ್ಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಸಂಡೇ ಟೈಮ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಳ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇರ್ಬೋದಲ್ವಾ? ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ನಮಗೂ ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬೇಕು. ನಾವು ಮಿಷಿನ್ ತರ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ? ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ವಾರಕ್ಕೆ ರಜಾ ಬೇಕೇ ಬೇಕು. ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಬೇಕು, ನನ್ಗಂತಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋ
ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಫಸ್ಟು ಭಾನುವಾರ ರಜೆ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಭಾನುವಾರ ರಜೆ ಬೇಕೇ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು 4 ದಿನ 5 ದಿನ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸದಲ್ಲಿ. ನಾವು ಭಾನುವಾರ ನಮಗೆ ರಜಾ ಬೇಕು, ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ರಜಾ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ರಜಾ ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಮನೇಲಿ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ, ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಮನೇಲಿ ಭಾನುವಾರ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ನಮಗೆ ಮನೇಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ನಿಮಗೆ ರಜಾ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿ ಗುಂಪಾಗಿ ಸೇರಿ, ಇಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೂ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೇಲಿ ನಾವು ವಾರಕ್ಕೊಂದ್ಸತಿ ನಾವು ನಮಗೂ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಜೊತೆ ನಾವು ಇರಬೇಕು, ನಮಗೂ ಆಸೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ತಿಂಗಳು ನಾವು ಕಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಾನೆ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ರೇನು ನಮಗೆ ಸಾಕಾಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಜೊತೆ ನಾವು ಟೈಮ್ ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಜಗಳ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವ್ರೇನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ
So thank you, Roshni. So that is the voice of the domestic workers themselves organizing themselves to actually ask for a Sunday off. So with that, I will also like Geeta Menon to comment on their struggles to get Sunday off for their workers. Geeta?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can go ahead. Geeta, you have muted yourself.
Okay. Yeah, 3 things, just 3 brief things. One is that the concept of leave itself. You see, if you look at this concept of leave and we relate it to housework, you will see that most women who work in their own homes and those who are women who are homemakers, what we say, there's no concept of leave for them also. So this concept of leave, rest, that the woman needs to rest, that the woman needs to have time for herself, is very, very alien to women and alien to women workers. So therefore, and the other thing is that this leave is not considered very important because we are still not looked at as workers. The house is not looked as a factory, neither, so the whole concept of work becomes different and the whole concept of leave becomes different. The other thing I would like to add is because we are still not recognized as workers, we don't have this concept of medical leave, the 15 days leave, which is the benefits that are there if we have a legislation. Since we do not have a law, since we do not have this framework. The third thing I would like to mention here only about leave is that many workers themselves have said that we don't want this leave. We don't want this weekly day off. Why? Because the next day we go to work, we have the dishes piled up, we have the stuff, more work to do, and so we don't want this day off, but we would like 4 days in a month off, so that if we want to go with our families anywhere, we want to spend time, we can take our day off when we want. So there's this also statement coming from them.
Usha, can you add on? Hello, Usha? Okay, I think we lost Usha on this. Yeah, Usha is there. Yeah.
Unmute.
Usha, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
With regard to leave, see what for me is so funny is that all these domestic workers are employed in homes where they're all enjoying 2 days weekly off. It's either in the IT sector or government workers working in the government department, bank officials and insurance officials. If you take the NGV apartment complex where there are 2,500 houses and 14 blocks where judges and bank officials stay, they all enjoy 2 days weekly off. But when the domestic worker asks for 1 day of weekly off, they don't want to give them. They ask reasons, whether you are married, you have a family, do you want to take a weekly off, what is the reason? So what I would like to mention is that weekly off is essential because these are all workers, women workers, who need time for their self, for the family, for recreation, for taking care of their visits to their family members, all these things. So the point that the employer raises is that 8 hours of work, you get 1 day's weekly off after 6 days of work. So the domestic worker does not work in my house for 8 hours. So she works only for 1 hour. So she's not eligible for the weekly off. This is the point, and this is something we need to really look into it and see how justifiable this is. And it's something that needs for discussion.
Thank you, Isha. So adding on, we should all realize that when we talk about leave, it is also that we are the employers, right? We don't need to wait for the government to come and say, when do you need to give leave? Because you all should remember that for the domestic worker, your home is the workplace. It's kind of an office. So you are an employer, and what decisions you make and what decisions that you make and what kind of relationship that you have will actually look at how future unfolds. So working on leave and the wages, we go on to the third demand, which is on bonus. Okay, so we have a small poll here too, and I'm going to run this poll on bonus, and here it is. Yeah, it looks like no one wants to poll. Bonus is the money which you give on a festival day or any other day for the domestic workers. We have 73 people voting on it. It's quite interesting that we started with 90, then we came to 85, now we're coming with 75. So I urge people, it's okay. So this is a kind of a learning for all of us to say, how do we deal with our own labor, which is actually quite nearer to us. So I'm just waiting for another person to vote. So you have 80. So I'm going to stop at 80. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Here's the result I'm sharing. So 94% of us actually give cash on domestic workers on festival day. The second question was asked is, how much cash do you give your domestic worker on festival day? And this is what people call bonus. 9% said 100 rupees. 54% overwhelmingly said 500 and a sari, and 28% said 1,000 rupees sweets and saris, and then 10% said a full month salary. Now, what is this bonus all about? The first time we will hear from the domestic workers themselves, and then Murli, I'll invite Murli to comment on it. and of course the other two panelists. So Roshni, can you run the cliplet, please? Roshni, you have to put the audio, please. Roshni? Roshni?
Yes, Rajesh. Just a minute. Something went wrong. It just got hanged.
ಬೋನಸ್ ಬಂದು ನಾವೇ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದ್ಸತಿ 1000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೇ ಸತಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದೇ ಅವ್ರು ಇಬ್ಬರೇ ಇದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾನು ಸಂಬಳ ಕೇಳಕ್ ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಜನ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸಂಬಳ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಹಬ್ಬ ಟೈಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ 1000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಇಲ್ಲ 500 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನೂ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. ಬೋನಸ್ ಅದೇ ದಸರಾ ಟೈಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದ್ 4000ನೋ 5000 ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಒಂದ್ ತಿಂಗಳು ಸಂಬಳ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ.
போனஸ் எதுவும் கிடையாது. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பர்த்டே இன்கிரிமெண்ட் கிடையாது. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் பர்த்டே இன்கிரிமெண்ட்னா 10% இல்ல 5% தான் இன்கிரிமெண்ட். அதுக்கு மேல அவங்க ஏத்துறது இல்ல.
ಮೇಡಮ್ ನಮಗೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಬೋನಸ್ ಇತ್ತು.
Okay, thank you, Roshni. I know the quality of our thing is the video is low, but what I want to emphasize is bonus is a 1 month salary. It is not just a token amount of 500 or 100 rupees or a sweet. It is about giving a 1 month salary is what we call as bonus. So to discuss a little more on this, I will invite my co-researcher on this, Balmurli, to talk a little more about this concept of bonus and what it really means for an employer and the employee relationship here. Yeah, Murli.
Thank you, Rajesh and Roshni, and thank you everybody for coming today. We've already heard some very important testimonies from both Geeta and Usha, and also some domestic workers like Pushpa, Selvi, Afina, and Kalavati in the video testimonies about the ways in which domestic workers are treated and the attitudes that impact them both legally as well as socially. Theirs is definitely an urgent call for all of us to change, and I mean all of us. So I want to add to their observations thus far and to help us think collectively about why these things happen. To help us think about this, I want to start with a quote from far away in time and place. It's a classic film called Sugar Cane Alley, and it is set in colonial French Martinique, which is a small country in the Caribbean. And an old man named Meduse is teaching a young boy, his name is Jose, and this young boy, his grandmother and every member of his family and every member of his entire community go to work for the entire day, every day of the week in the sugarcane estates. And Meduse speaks to Jose about education and the value of it, and about Africa, and about how things had changed from earlier times of slavery to give way to capitalism, although slavery helped made capitalism also in the first place in the Caribbean. But this is what Meduse says to Jose, and I'm quoting, "We are now free, but our bellies are empty. The master has become the boss." That's the quote I want us to think about, because those words are good to think about the condition of domestic workers today and the employer-employee relations that have already been referred to by Gita and Usha. To understand the significance of bonus, especially for domestic workers, I'm going to focus on 4 core issues that I believe help shape the conditions of domestic workers today. And this is part of the longer term research that both Rajesh and Roshni and I have been doing. These are also the same issues that unions grapple with. I see some questions in the chat, and I hope we get to those questions. So the first issue is the household. The second issue is the employer-worker relations. The third is bonus viewed as a bakshish. And the fourth is the role of advance. So very quickly, the household is a workplace and not simply a private place. It is a workplace for the domestic worker, and it is what factory floor is for the worker, a place where she enters into a production relation with her employer or boss. Geeta also mentioned this earlier. However, this is one of the greatest challenges for domestic workers, since the employers and most others do not think of the household as a place of production. The domestic worker provides a service that is commoditized, that is, she gets a wage for it. But she also helps the household reproduce itself by precisely aiding other members of the household to use their freed up time to go outside the household and earn wages. This helps the reproduction of the household and helps everybody keep their jobs. In this sense, the household is a productive unit that is linked to the other place of work outside of the home. And employers and all of us need to have this as one of our core awareness raising issues. The second issue is the employer-worker relations that have also been touched upon within the household. Not being able to think of the household as a place of production makes the employer classes, that is the middle and upper classes, to think of domestic workers in idioms other than as workers. And here I want us to consider the fact that words are very important. Words shape our perspectives, our thoughts, our beliefs, our desires, and ultimately impact our actions towards other people. Most popularly, domestic workers are called as servants or maids or any other vernacular terms such as ka or bai as in parts of Maharashtra, or velakari as in Tamil. But such terms are differently impactful. They construct the domestic worker in a different way from other words such as mazdoor in Hindi or toilali in Tamil, or and I know I'm not going to pronounce this properly, but it is kelasagara in Kannada. We need to pay some attention to what we call them. So calling your domestic worker as a servant forces the relation to remain paternalistic or in the master-slave mode, as Meduse mentioned earlier. So this is in stark contrast to the employers themselves, who do not consider themselves as servants of the company they work for. They will consider themselves as employees working for a company. It ultimately does not allow the domestic worker to have the dignity that is meant for all human beings. And dignity is key to any person's life. It's definitely key to a worker's life, especially those in the informal sector, which is about 90% of India's working classes are in that sector. They work really without a formal contract. The third point I want to emphasize is viewing bonus as bakshish. We saw a little bit in the videos that were played with Selvi and Pushpa. Viewing work relations in the household not as productive relations, but as paternalistic relations, makes employers think of what they compensate the domestic worker only in terms that are outside of a contract. Thus, they may think that their payment is itself a form of a tip or bakshish for a service rather than a wage for a work that helps the household reproduce itself. Further, this paternalistic relationship encourages employers to think in very patronizing ways about the domestic worker when it comes to the demand for bonus. This makes them, for example, give gifts such as a sari instead of cash, even if many times the sari is mixed with the cash, but it's really seen as a gift. And the assumption about the domestic workers is that here is what they need. And that assumption is made by the employer instead of asking the domestic worker what they would want. In fact, in our surveys, it was overwhelmingly clear that domestic workers would like cash. Now, the demands for bonus are typically also during the festival times. This is a customary thing, it has now become, and so it's usually during Diwali or Eid, and this timing itself is due to the employers thinking of the transaction as a gift or a bakshish or sometimes even as a daan or a charity rather than a rightful demand of a worker as per the universal rights of workers. So seeing the bonus as a bakshish keeps the domestic worker as something less than a worker and entirely dependent on the graciousness and the generosity of the employer. The final point I want to make is there's another complicating factor here, and that is the role of something called the advance. And this comes in some way to shape the asking of the bonus also. Complicating the demand for bonus is the fact that most domestic workers are very precariously positioned in the economy. We nowadays call them the precariats. They are one step below the proletariats. Most of them barely make enough to reproduce their own households. They typically borrow money, therefore, as an advance from their employers. And not all employers give advances, and not all employers give it easily. But many times the advance is a loan that the domestic worker has to pay back on a monthly basis, sometimes with no interest, but sometimes it could even be with some small amount of interest. But domestic workers take these advances usually at rates much better than what they can do outside in the private money lending market, which are huge usurious loans, loan rates, maybe even 40 or 60% rates, and they many times do not qualify for bank loans that are not easily available for them. They need the money, at least from our surveys, overwhelmingly and interestingly, for educating their children, apart from some healthcare issue which is always there. And they aspire that their children typically should not become part of their own profession. This also is a very telling thing about the conditions of work. Such a situation on being in debt to your employer also makes it a little harder for domestic workers to ask for bonus. And yet it is a bonus that is the ultimate marker of a worker and a domestic worker. So I want to conclude by saying, what does all this mean? As middle and upper class employers, we have a lot of work to do. Most importantly, to become aware of the relations that we enter into with domestic workers and start the journey of viewing the act of asking for a bonus as a transformational act for the domestic worker themselves, to liberate themselves from servanthood to worker and actually become a full person in the eyes of the employers. We have a nasty tendency, and this is in many parts of the world, but I can definitely say about our own cultural context, that we typically tend to make people less than full human beings, less than full persons by calling them certain kinds of names. And A bonus demand is simultaneously, therefore, also a demand for middle and upper class employers to free ourselves from weaving paternalistic webs of relations, and instead we need to think in terms of being in solidarity with the oppressed. And I'll end with the revolutionary Brazilian teacher Paulo Freire, who once said, and I quote, "We need to stop making pious, sentimental, and individualistic gestures and to affirm, in our case, that the domestic workers are indeed persons." But thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Murli, for that. Just to reiterate what Murli is saying is that, that we need to come away from this paternalistic behaviors, like saying, oh, they are very pawams, and, that's why we give them 100 rupees or 500 rupees or a sweet box, or because they are very poor, so I give them food. What we really need to know is they are workers. And I saw one of Pooja's questions there, that when do we actually really say that we are treating them as equal? Because in a middle class home, we always keep saying, oh, they are part of our family. And I just saw Pooja actually doing that in the comment, which reminds me that when do we actually say that we have arrived at actually treating workers as equal, is when we actually invite them on our table. Not to make them sit in the kitchen to eat or sit down and eat. It's when we think that when we arrived is when we actually invite them to say, sit on our table and eat. And that's the time when we know that we have actually made some progress. So with that, I also invite Geeta to comment on it a little, or we can open up for more questions. Geeta?
Okay. I just add a small bit here, especially because Murli was speaking very well about this relationship and this bakshish. And so in the relationship of employer and employee, it's always the favor that is looked at. And on the other side, it's a very petty things come into this relationship. I'd just like to give an example where I was quite shocked about it, is that when the worker was leaving that particular employer, and when we went to calculate the amount that is due to her, that employer cancelled the amount from her salary that she was to give her on leaving, saying that I paid you bonus na. So that 500 rupees bonus what she paid her was cancelled from her amount that was due to her when she was leaving, when the worker was leaving. I mean, it is that pettiness that is there most of the time in this relationship. And very often employers tell their workers, how can you earn 5 bonuses in 5 houses? You see, we earn only 1 bonus in 1 company. How can you earn 5 bonuses in 5 houses? I mean, this just reflects on the kind of pettiness that is there and on the attitude of doing a favor for workers. I think we should be wary of that.
Usha, do you want to add? Usha, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. With regard to bonus, I would like to say that as per the Act, it is the 13th month salary that has to be given as the bonus. But as it's the practice, 500 rupees, 100 rupees, a sari, these are the things that the workers get. The challenge now for unions is to convince the worker that they have to demand for this, because it's the labor that they are contributing, and we have to really convince the workers that if they are not going to the work, the employer is going to suffer. And in many instances, even 10 minutes late, the worker arrives at home, the employer gets so tensed. And with the traffic in Bangalore and other metropolitan cities, there's so much of trouble for the employer to get back to their work. So this concept of employer and employee relationship is something that needs to be worked on. And then we will have to convince about the bonus, about how important it is for the worker to get a 1 month wage as bonus and not just the salary or the gifts that the employer gives.
Thank you. We can open the question for some of the questions to be answered. So, Roshni, do we have any questions so that we can put it to the panelists?
Rajesh, I see many of the questions are answered by Geeta directly. Yeah, I see her replying, responding. But I feel 2-3 questions are not, it's maybe for the larger response. There's a question, how central trade unions in India affiliated to political parties have been organizing domestic workers. Are they successful in organizing domestic workers? Maybe, and also maybe little related to it, there's one more question. I would like to understand or learn about how unions help to organize domestic workers and other sections of unorganized sector workers.
So I think I will answer that question, and if possible, then Geeta and Usha can come in. At the moment, we can see that, especially in the informal sector work, it is not the central trade unions who have been successful more, but mostly the labor NGOs who have gone to the areas and try to enroll them. This is a lot of hard work, because you're not registering workers at the factory gate as central trade unions do, because you have an employer and the employee, so you have a factory gate, you go and organize them. This is really hard work, where you have to go to the residents and actually organize them there. So it is the other informal sector trade unions which are doing a good job of it. But I also want to say that it's a very hard job. It's a very unthankful job at the ground level, because you must know, when you go into the areas, especially in the low income areas, you also fight for your own space, because there are SAG groups, there are microfinance groups, there are religious groups. In all that, you are actually trying to tell them you are a worker, right? You are not a servant. So it's a really, really tough task. And I can say that the journey is just started, but it's not over yet. It's a really, really hard task to be going out there and doing. Yeah.
Rajesh, can I comment something on this, on the organizing?
Yes.
Yeah, see, with regard to organizing, especially when, as you mentioned, where there are self-help groups and other groups that are giving them something, like self-help groups are giving them loans, they are able to support in some other ways. So with that situation, when the unions go to the areas to organize them, there is always this expectation from the worker that what am I getting in return? So it's really a tough job to organize the workers, but still that's the only strength that for them to demand their rights. Only the organizing power can give them their rights.
Geeta?
Can I come in here? Yeah, just to say that, as Rajesh said, off late, the unions, traditional unions, central trade unions have been recognizing that the informal economy is here to stay. And therefore, they have, because the other organized sector is getting also lesser space, they are also started to organize the workers in the unorganized sector. Saying that, I think we have to start looking at unions and organizing in a different way for the informal economy. Because the entire traditional form of organizing has to change. When we look at domestic workers, it's largely women and workers. So because of no workplace, because of all those factors, the normal way of organizing workers would not be at the workplace. We have to look at them as social beings. And so therefore, social organization is much more important to be done and much more necessary to be followed, rather than just a trade union format. Because it will be a trade union format, but not at the factory level, but it has to be in keeping with the way the economy is organized today. So it has to, and that workers, women workers largely are social beings first. So it will be very important to understand that and organize it.
Thank you, Geeta. And also when we did a survey and asked the women, why do you want to join a domestic workers union? Overwhelming of them actually said that we want to join the domestic workers union for security reasons. Okay. And what is the security? Like Asha said, as Usha said, you join an SHG, you might get a loan. Kind of microfinance, you might get a loan. What do you get here? You're only getting to fight for your own rights. And when we asked what is the security is all about, is that the time when they said that when we get into trouble, especially with employer accusing them of robbery and all that, it is only the domestic workers union who will come to fight for them in the police station. No one else is going to come. And most of them, overwhelming of them, actually join for security reasons rather than any other reason. And this is a telling fact of how we actually treat our domestic workers in the eyes of how the employers look at it. Yes. Any other questions, Roshni?
Yes, Rajesh, there was one on present situation. Will the COVID have consequences of bargaining powers of domestic workers? So
I'll give to Geeta and Usha to answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Usha.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It is going to be a challenge because many of them have still not got back their employment, and there are many who are waiting to be called for their employment. So in such situation, to demand for a increase in the wages or for bonus is going to be a big challenge, and we will have to work out some strategies to see how we overcome these.
Geeta?
So, Usha said that bargaining power now takes a different note, takes a different turn. We are using our bargaining power, we are using our collective strength to fight to regain our livelihoods. To regain our livelihoods, to do advocacy with the government, to push for more and more, understanding and schemes for the domestic workers. So bargaining power doesn't lessen. Bargaining power, in fact, can get better and more collective because the situation has become almost such a crisis, So it should get better. We can use that. And I just would like to, can I answer something here? Because I wanted to put that forward because now it has come as a question on the chat. That basically the POSH Act,
yes,
and the Act of 2013. Why I'm answering it is because to show you the difference between how the employers look at this act and for themselves. Because in the companies where they work, most of them are strong advocates of this act. They want the POSH Act, they want it implemented, they want the framework. They look upon themselves as very, ethical employers. But when we raised it to those factories, to those corporates, what about your own homes? There is silence. So the POSH Act does apply to domestic workers because domestic workers go into a workplace, and that's the only act which we have the strength to use, because there the definition of a workplace for domestic workers. But the POSH Act, unfortunately, the mechanism is still very weak. The mechanism of the local complaints committees are still very weak and not functional. So if we have to take such cases, we normally depend on the ITC and we depend on the viability of the RWAs if they can take it up. Otherwise, we go straight to the police station.
Thank you, Geeta. Any other questions?
Rajesh,
Yeah.
can I just answer a couple of questions too? I just wanted to answer three things. One is to go back to what Geeta had said earlier about the employer saying, well, we get only one bonus. How do you get so many bonuses? I think it's a simple question of addition, that the bonus is an aggregative pay for all the domestic workers, and even when you add up the bonuses from every employer, they'll still be getting far less than what she needs to be getting paid, which is really the 13th month's salary, as Usha pointed out correctly. And further, someone was asking, where does this bonus, I mean, are corporates eligible for it? Well, from my understanding of the social history of the bonus, it comes from the world of labor rights. It is a collectively fought for labor right as a universal labor right. So anyone who labors, be it in the informal or the formal sector, is deserving of bonus. It is just thought of as so strange that a domestic worker, how can she dare ask for a bonus? So that's the first point. The second thing is the question about words also came up in the chat, and I think it's important, and I am glad these questions are, I mean, we have this forum to talk through. I am more familiar with the Hindi thing, so we need to select our words from the options available. So Mazdoori is far better than Naukri, in my opinion, simply because for whatever coincidental reason, but it's not really coincidental, it is part of the root of that. It has Naukar or servant within it. And so it is better than to replace Naukri with Mazdoori. And yes, 2 or 3 other questions are there. Workers, especially domestic workers, but really all workers, are always gendered and casted. So in addition to facing all kinds of issues as workers, domestic workers are also facing stigmatization and humiliation and insults and slurs, which are all threats to keep them in place, or what in Hindi we can say aukad. So this is a very standard operation procedure to make sure someone stays where they are supposed to stay in that hierarchy. Finally, there was this question about what is happening to labor. I think all labor is getting pulverized, especially increasingly under the facade of COVID. So stringent labor laws, including extending of the working day, has been sought to be pushed in various states. And this then is a reminder that if people think that, oh, it's happening to them, it won't happen to us, or that we'll be exempt, I think we'll all be proven wrong by history. All of us are vulnerable, but some of us are far more vulnerable than others. So if in corporate America or in corporate India or wherever else, the bonus is not being given, that does not translate that why should the domestic worker not ask for bonus? Maybe they need it far more than someone else who's got more pay. So I want to just leave it at that. These are questions that we should think collectively.
I think we are almost end of the time, Murli. So before we close, we also want to tell you that we had a booklet which actually tells about all these 3 rights and how do employer and employee view these 3 issues of leave, salary, and bonus. So you can see it in our website, which we also take this day to actually put it on our website. Tejas, can you put the website name so that they can go and check it?
Thanks, Rajesh. So we will be emailing you the address for the download link. Yes. So you'll be able to access it, and we will also send an upload, like a YouTube link for the uploaded for the session once this is uploaded, right? Yes. So we will send both things together over email to you within a day's time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So you can please also share it widely, so that I remember a lot of them asking how we can help. I think you can help us by sharing it widely among your friends, relatives. As I always say, convincing your relatives and parents is the most difficult task than anything else. You know, you can convince your friend, but not your relatives and your own parents. I think that's where the work starts. The work starts from your own home rather than somewhere outside. You know, and also work starts from your own self, because we always use the word domestic worker, not domestic worker, but domestic maids. or servants. And I think that's where the work starts individually. And I hope the session was a very useful one for everyone. And I also take this opportunity to thank Geeta and Usha to come as a panelist, and all those domestic workers unions who worked behind the scenes. And I know we couldn't bring them here because of technology constraints, especially the Domestic Workers' Rights Union and Manikasa Union. So with that, thank you one and all, and I hope this session was a great learning experience for everyone. Okay, thank you.